Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're coming into from. Good to see everybody this morning. And I'm Becky King with Career Education. And I'm joined today by my colleague Dana Keep, and she is going to kick us off. We are so excited to have Jenny with us today. Take it away, Dana.
Okay, hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us. We think you are in for a real treat today. Today we have Jennie Nash, class of '86, joining us for this webinar. Jennie is the CEO of Author Accelerator, which is a company that trains and certifies book coaches. It's a new role that has emerged in the ever-changing publishing industry. Jennie has a terrifically fascinating career journey from English major to writer to entrepreneur. And she's going to share more about that with you so that you can understand what she's been up to. And we welcome you to put your questions in the chat along the way because she's excited to answer those questions. And Jennie, thank you so much for taking the time to share all of your experience and insights with the Wellesley community. We are delighted to have you.
Thank you so much to Dana and Becky and Lorraine for setting this all up and offering these amazing things to us. It's wonderful the work you guys are doing, and I'm very happy to participate. I have some slides that I'm going to share, so I'll share my screen and go through those, and then I'll come back and answer all the questions. So while I'm talking, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and they can be on anything. I'm going to hit on a lot of different things. So we will have plenty of time for that when I am done. So I am going to now share my screen because I have the power. And Dana, can you give me a thumbs up? You can see that just fine?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so today we're talking about writing a book and how you can stop wishing and start writing. I am Jennie Nash, as I was introduced, class of '86. And you heard that I'm the founder and CEO of this company that trains book coaches. And I'm going to talk about what a book coach is because it's a new thing. And you're probably wondering, where did it come from and why have I never heard of it? So we'll get to that in a minute. I have been in publishing for more than 30 years. I've written 9 books in 3 genres. My first job right out of Wellesley was at Random House. I went from Wellesley down to New York and got a job there working for a nonfiction and a fiction editor. So since day one, I have been in this world, and these are some of the books that I have written. The latest book is this one that I wrote on book coaching called Read Books All Day and Get Paid for It. And I'm also, as we talked about, run this company that trains and certifies book coaches. It's a virtual business. It's a thing that I started when I was 50, and after a long career in publishing, kind of took this pivot and turn, and it is a thing I do. And I just have to say that it is the most gratifying and satisfying thing. I never expected to be in this place and land here, but I did, and I feel like it takes advantage of all of the skills and talents I've developed over the years, all the way back to my days in the English classrooms at Wellesley. So a book coach is a person who works at the intersection of a dream and a business. We help writers who are wanting to be published and having that dream and having that fantasy and talking about doing it to actually do it, and to do it in a way that will be viable for them in the publishing universe, whatever that means to them. So we're bringing together project management skills and editorial skills to help writers do their work while they're writing. It's very much like, everybody knows what a basketball coach does, or I guess if you've been watching the World Series, what a baseball coach does. We know what a leadership coach does. It's exactly the same thing. We're with the writer in the muck of the creative process, helping them do their best work and being with them over the long haul to help them. So what we do is we help writers bring their books to life. These are some of the books that my clients have published in a wide variety of genres and all different kinds of books that are out in the world now. And it really is just incredibly satisfying work to help people bring those dreams to life. So what I'm going to be doing today, that was just a little bit about me and my journey, and I'm happy to talk more about how an English major made her way into the world of publishing and now into the world as an entrepreneur. If people have questions about that, happy to talk about that later. But today I'm going to focus on why so many people want to write a book, why so many people don't do it. I've got 7 steps to stop wishing and start writing. And then you can ask me anything you want. So that's the agenda for the day. So why do so many people want to write a book? What is that about? Because statistics say that something like 80% of adults are wanting to write a book. And I have certainly found during the pandemic that that desire has risen up very strongly in a lot of people. It's, I think, something that comes to us when we have time to think about what is meaningful to us, what is the thing we've always been called to do, how do we want to spend our time, what kind of a legacy do we want to leave. These are the things that drive people to want to write in any genre, and it's been very strong this year in a lot of people. So some of the key reasons that we see is a book lets you find your voice and claim your voice. And this is especially powerful for people who feel that their voice has been silenced or suppressed, whether that's in your family of origin, whether that's in society at large, whether that's something you've done your own self to silence your own self. Writing a book is absolutely an act of reclamation for your own voice. You also probably want to influence other people in some way, because books make people laugh, or they teach us something, or they help us escape, or they help us to believe more deeply in something. It could be God or dragons or fairies or mushrooms or, anything, but a book is not a neutral thing. It is a thing that really moves people's minds and causes them to take actions, causes them to know themselves better. It's a powerful thing to do. And many people are called to write because they've had that experience of being a reader and being impacted in that way. And they want to give that experience to other people. They want to be part of that chain of powerful connection. And another reason we see people really wanting to write is that they don't want to die before they write a book. And I laugh when I say that, but it's actually really at the root of a lot of people's desire. Is usually people have wanted to be a writer from a very young age. It's usually people who were reading under the covers with a flashlight when they weren't supposed to. I actually have a memory at Wellesley. I'm sort of embarrassed to admit it, but it was in a big lecture hall in Pendleton, and it was a 101 survey class, and not in English. I think it was poli-sci maybe, but I had a novel in the back. I'd sit in the back of the room, and if something was boring me or going on too long, I would sneak out, and read pages of the book. I mean, it's terrible, but it was just a thing that I was always just drawn to do and compelled to do. And most people are like that they've wanted to be in this world and to be a writer and to give that impact to other readers from a very young age. And then life happens, and we have careers and families, or all the other things that we do, and people suddenly realize, like, I got to do this. Oh, we got a little flash where the power seemed to go out, but I think it's back. But people really are compelled to want to do it before they die. So that is a real thing that we see a lot. The next question is, so why don't all those people who have all those powerful reasons, why don't they want to do it? Why don't they actually want to do it? And we have a lot of reasons for that as well. So first of all, writing a book is a complex intellectual undertaking that takes a lot of time. And people know that. They have an intuitive understanding of that. And so not doing it is because, well, it's going to be hard. They often don't do it because they know that writers are not likely to make much money. That is just a truth in our society. We don't honor our artists that well. People may point to Stephen King or J.K. Rowling, or somebody who is at the top of the 1% in terms of reach of their writing and the money that they make. And they think, well, those people make money, but nobody else does. And there's some truth to that. Certainly for the time that you spend on a book, it's not a lottery ticket that's going to come true and save your whole life. And people have an intuitive understanding of that, even if they say that their goal is to leave their day job or get a movie deal or whatever the thing they might say. I think they have an intuitive understanding that it doesn't often lead to a lot of money. The third reason people don't do it is they know they're going to be harshly judged. We do judge writers. We judge them by so many different criteria. And in the current marketplace with social media and everything else happening out there in the world, there's a lot of negativity. And so people don't write because they know they're going to have to face that. And I think that this is true if you write anything that I would call real or authentic. There's going to be people who believe something different or who don't want to see that out in the world, or whatever that might be. And this is true for any kind of book. And people have an intuitive sense that that is going to be what happens to them if they write it, and they're right. The fourth reason people tend to not want to write is that they know that what's on the page is never going to be as beautiful as what is in their head. And this too is true. You can envision a story, you can envision how it's going to move and feel and look and how it's going to be in the world. And when you then start to put the words on the page, it doesn't work the same way that it's working in your head, or it doesn't work at the beginning the same way as you experience when you're reading a book. And so there's this disconnect, this gap between what you can produce and what you can imagine. And that can be very frustrating, especially for new writers. And by that, I mean at any age, but people who are newly committed to writing a book, that gap between what they can do and what they can see, it can be really great, and it's quite frustrating. So the final reason that people may shy away from actually diving in and doing the work is that it is soul level work. It really is. It is. When I talk about something real or authentic, writing a book is getting down to a really deep level place where you're connecting with who you really are. That's why it's about raising your voice. You're connecting to what you really believe. And that work, that's why writing is hard. Putting words on a page is not hard. Sitting down at a keyboard and just banging words out, not hard. What's hard is the soul level work that it demands. And most people have an understanding that they're going to have to get here, and that's frightening. That is a scary thing. I love this quote by illustrator Vesper Stamper. She says, "Art is hard. It's demanding. It demands that you bring your entire soul to it. There are a lot easier things to do than to bring your soul to work every day." And I think at the end of the day, this is why a lot of people don't commit to writing a book, is that they know this. They know that they're undertaking a really soul level demanding thing. And there are, she says, a lot easier things to do. I mean, a lot. You could grow zucchini, you could knit a sweater, which I think is a hard thing too. But there's a lot of things you could do with your free time other than this kind of work. So I think these are the reasons why people tend not to want to do it. So what's the way forward in the face of these difficult realities of actually doing the work? That's where I've got 7 steps to stop wishing and start and continue writing. I think it's really important to take small steps along the way in order to reach your big step. If you just say, that's it, next year I'm going to write a book, I'm going to do it, that's just wishful thinking. You need a plan. You need to have a way to keep yourself accountable. You need to have a project management system. There's a lot that you need to do. And before you get there, these are the 7 steps that are going to lay a firm foundation for you to actually move forward and do it. So step one is to know, why are you writing this story? And sometimes I use story interchangeably to refer to both fiction and nonfiction. When I work with nonfiction clients, we're absolutely working on the story. It's an argument. It might be a prescriptive how-to book, how to do something, or a business leadership book, but I still think of it as a story. You're taking the reader through an arc of change. You're taking them on a journey. So why are you even doing this? That's the first question to ask. And I have absolutely, referring to the Simon Sinek book here, Start With Why. I start with why with writers as well. He says very few people or companies can clearly articulate why they do what they do. By why, I mean your purpose, cause, or belief. Why does your company exist? Why do you get out of bed every morning? And why should you care? So for writers, we just changed that to be, why does your story exist? Why do you get out of bed every morning? And why should readers care? This is the question that underlies all motivation for writing. And every writer should start with this question. You really have to know, why this story now? What does the story mean to you? And until you can answer those questions, it's going to be very hard to write a book that engages your reader. So you've really got to get there. Why brings clarity to your work at every single level and at every single stage in the creative process. If you have a vague answer as to why this story, why now, why are you doing this, you're gonna end up with a vague story. It's just the way that it works. You've got to have real clarity as to why you're doing it. Why can be your North Star while you write. It can show you how to get back on track if you get stuck. If somebody comes to me and maybe they're on a deadline with a publisher, maybe they're on a self-imposed deadline and they're stuck and they just don't know how to get back on track, what I always do is go to their why. Well, why are you doing this project? Why do you care? Perhaps why are you not walking away from it? Knowing these questions is just fundamental to keeping yourself on track. And why, I think, is absolutely the best antidote to procrastination and doubt. Procrastination and doubt are going to happen. They're part of the creative process, and you've got to welcome them. You've got to get to know them and understand them and work with them. And knowing your why is just a perfect tool to do this. If you're thinking, my idea is no good, nobody's going to care, I don't have the skills and talent to bring it to life, whatever that thing you might be thinking doubt-wise. Or if you're just procrastinating, meaning I'll fold the laundry and then I'll write, and watch that World Series game and then I'll write, I'm gonna wait till we have a vaccine and then I'll write, whatever your procrastination story is. Usually knowing your why and really sitting down and tapping back into your why is the thing that's going to get you over that, whether it's procrastination or doubt, because these are just voices in our head that are telling us a different story. And we've got to get back on the story about why this matters and why we care. And that's going to push that procrastination and doubt aside. So when I ask about your why, this is not about what you want out of your writing life. Like, it's not about, well, I want to write a book because I want to quit my job. It's not that. Or it's not about why you like the actual topic, why you care about vampires or why you care about, whatever the topic is. It's your deep level why. It's really about you and why these things, this topic or this dream of quitting your day job matters to you, and why is writing the vehicle that you've chosen to get you there. And one hint about your deep level why, that you've reached it because it's probably going to make you either smile or get really angry or scream or feel really nauseous. People actually often say that to me, where they say, I think I know why I want to do this or what I really want to do, but it's kind of making me feel sick. And I say, that's it. That's what we want. That's what we're after. So some action that you can take to determine your deep level why is to just take a page and write on why you're writing this story or book, and be brutally honest with yourself. Tell yourself nobody else is going to see this page, and let yourself be really honest, and put it down on the page. It's so effective to see it written down. The second step to, excuse me, to moving your writing forward is to know what your goal is. Now, this might seem a sort of simplistic question, but it's not. If you don't know your goal, if you're just throwing darts randomly at the board, you're not going to hit anything, and you're going to be frustrated and overwhelmed. This is true in any area of life. It's not just about writing, obviously, it's about anything. And you've really got to know what you want to hit. So let's say you wanted to learn to play the guitar. Well, is your goal to be able to sit around a campfire with your friends and sing songs? I mean, that's an amazing goal. That would be an amazing thing to be able to do. And that's fabulous, but it's a very different goal than wanting to play a guitar on a stage in front of a bunch of screaming fans under the bright lights. And the steps that you'll take to learn the guitar are going to be different depending on that goal. So, you've really got to know what you're going for here. So when it comes to writing a book, having a goal means taking it seriously and committing to a plan that you're going to actually, follow. Excuse me, I have a little tickle in my throat. I'm just going to take a sip of tea here. All right. So you want to commit to something so that you can actually take it seriously, so you can actually do it. So this means taking a risk that it might not work, and taking a risk that it might actually fail. So some of the goals you might have in your book writing journey would be to make money. Some people want to do this, and there are ways to approach writing that can make more money than other ways. I have a friend who makes many millions of dollars a year writing romances. She happens to have an economics degree from Yale. She's incredibly smart. She's incredibly strategic. And this is how she supports her family. That is a thing that you can do if that's what you want to do. Another goal might be to make a name for yourself. Maybe you want to be a thought leader in your industry. Maybe you want to claim a methodology or a framework that you use in your business, and you want to have your name attached to that. That's a really viable goal as well. You might want to influence, educate, illuminate, comfort, entertain people. There might be something you want your book to do, and the impact could be your goal. Another goal would be to raise your voice and speak up and claim your story. And there are a million different reasons why this could be a powerful goal to have, but to tap down into it and know that that's what you really want is going to help you do it. Another goal would be to prove that you can do it, either to yourself or others. This is this kind of, when people tell you you can't, and then you're going to double down and prove that they're wrong, that can be really powerful motivation. Another goal you might have is because you just can't rest until you do this thing. If you feel really called to it and you're burning to do it, and you just know that it's going to haunt you, that's a great goal. Like, I just have to do this. I don't care what happens to the book. I just have to do it, and I want to do it well. That's a great goal. Another goal could be to leave a legacy for your family. I once worked with a woman who had an incredibly interesting life, and she was at the end of her life, and she wanted to capture her life story for her family, and she wanted to do it in a narrative form, and that was a really amazing goal. I also once worked with somebody who was writing a story that it wasn't his story. It was actually, he wanted to leave a legacy for somebody else, with a friend that he had been very close to who took his own life, and he wanted to remember that man's life for his other family. And he didn't care if his book was read by thousands of people. He just needed to do it for that. And then another goal could be to model for your kids what it means to pursue a dream, what it looks like to work hard and to overcome frustration and failure and to persevere and all those things. And I actually recently added this to this list because I share this list with my clients. We actually have a conversation. Which ones of these are driving you? Which ones of these are going to be the primary thing? And I added the last one really because of my own kids who are grown now. They're 25 and 28, and they see me doing what I'm doing and are really motivated by that and really inspired by that, and I'm really proud of that. And I think that can be a goal to do something as well. So you really want to know what your goal is in writing this book. The action to take for that would be to look at that list, and you'll be able to get these slides and download them when we send out the recording, and check all the boxes that apply and imagine yourself succeeding at this dream of writing a book, and write down what you see. How are you in the world when this book is finished? What are you doing with it? Are you at a book signing at your favorite bookstore? Are you on a big stage giving a speech? Are you quietly handing it to somebody who needs it? Are you responding to reader email? What do you actually see yourself in the world doing with this book? That's what your goal is, and that can really help you circle around what it is, and then just figure out one step to take toward making that dream a reality. The first step you need to take toward that particular goal, and take that step. The third question is to know, who are you writing for? So you can have sort of a vague, there's a practice a lot of people use in business, which is to make an avatar for your ideal client. And, you sort of give them, maybe you give them glasses or a beard or red hair or whatever attribute that you give them. And I mean, this is a great way to start. Some people suggest starting, if you know somebody that's your ideal reader, your Aunt Sally, think about them. And I love that. It's a good start. But I think you need to really dig even deeper into this, into the psychographic nature of your ideal reader. What do they need? Why are they coming to this book? And if you think of your own reading life and why you read certain books over other books, you know that you come to books for very specific reasons, for very particular reasons. And those reasons can vary widely. It can be, it's just want to forget about everything for a minute and have a fun, easy read. Or, I really want to learn about this topic and I want to dig deep into it. Or I heard this writer's a great storyteller. I just want to be immersed in a great story for a while. We know why we're reading particular books. So you really want to think, what does my future reader need? And these are some of the things you might think about, that they might need solace or escape. They might just want to laugh. They might want to learn. They might be curious about something. They might want insight into something. But know what they need and what you're going to give them in this book. And this applies to anything. You could be writing middle grade fiction about a disaster at the soccer game. That's one of my clients right now. Or you could be writing, also one of my clients, CEO of a big company, who's writing about the sea change that we're seeing in business right now, where business needs to take responsibility for our planet. And, it doesn't matter on the spectrum of what you want your reader to get from your book, but you have to know what you're giving them, and you have to know what they need and want. So you really have to know who they are. So the action here is to ask yourself questions about your ideal reader. What keeps her up at night? What does she want more than anything in the world? And what can your book do to help her get it? If you can answer those questions about your reader, however you can picture them physically, if you can answer these questions, you're much more likely to write a book that's going to give it to them. The fourth thing to do is to know what point your story is going to make. And I could talk for days on this. I think it's really critically important. So by point, I mean the big picture takeaway, the sort of, what's your big idea here? What do you want people to know or believe when they're finished, reading your book? Excuse me. I often tell people to think about this in terms of a bumper sticker. which is a cliche that everybody knows and everybody can sort of understand. And it's good to start here because it's obvious, it's universal, and it really helps the writer to be able to define this. What's my point? Why am I doing this? What do I want to say? So it could be not all superheroes wear capes. It could be technology is evil. It could be Black Lives Matter. And the thing about these cliches and bumper stickers is that they can lead to a wide range of different kinds of books. So Black Lives Matter, for example, could lead to these are all best-selling books that could have come from that type of a bumper sticker idea. And we have YA fiction, we have adult fiction, we have fantasy, we have nonfiction here on this slide. All of those books could have led from that single bumper sticker. And that's, in fact, the point. You got to know your point. You have to sort of know the sandbox that you're playing in. And then what happens is that your book is not itself going to be a bumper sticker or a billboard or a manifesto, unless that's actually your goal, to write a manifesto. It might be a story. It's going to be far more nuanced than a bumper sticker, is my point. And by choosing your genre, choosing your characters, choosing your voice, all the choices that you make when you're writing a book are going to go to making your book unique and special and powerful. So you start with a bumper sticker so that you can get to a nuanced ending. And that is a really powerful path to take before you start to write, to know that point that you're going to have. You want your readers to leave the experience of reading your book with a really strong feeling or belief about something. And when you think about why you press a book into your friend's hands and say, you have to read this, what you're doing is saying, I want to talk to you about this point this book is making, or I think this point would be one that is really important to you. You're actually passing on that point. So the writer has to really know what that's going to be. So the action to take here is to write 1 or 2 lines about the point your book is making. Write the bumper sticker, really know what it's going to be. That's going to help you circle around choices in your book that are going to lead to your reader getting this point. The 5th thing to do is to find a structure to contain your idea. So by structure, I mean the opposite of just a scattered bunch of ideas. You could write a bunch of things, you could write a bunch of pages, you could write 350 pages that go nowhere. They're not held together in any way, shape, or form. They're just, scattered all over the place, and nobody's going to want to read that. We read books that have beautiful structures to contain the beautiful ideas. So I like to think of it as making a model for your book. That's what structure is. Structure is the container. You're going to be able to hold it in your hands and walk around it in almost a 3D way so that you can see how it lives in the world, the shape that it takes, the form that is going to help you with the function of making your point. So every sort of artist does this. This is an architect making a model. A dressmaker might make a muslin copy before they make the actual dress. I have a friend who's a marble sculptor, and he makes a cast model before he goes to carve the marble. So all creative people do this, and it should be no different for writers. You want a structure that's going to contain your story. That's where the juice comes from. That's where it's all going to come together. So the action to take here is to study the structure of other books. Go look at the books that you love and break apart what they're doing and how they're doing it. It's terribly interesting. I am just a table of contents junkie. I love to read tables of contents. And I love to see how people are putting their ideas together. What sort of shape are they using? What sort of structure have they decided upon? And this is true for nonfiction or fiction. Fiction has a very clear structures too. Where does the narrator stand in time? What is the elapsed time of story present, that we're following in story present? Who speaks? Who has a voice in fiction? How many point of view characters? These are the questions about structure. And if you watch structure in other people's work, you begin to learn about it, understand it, know what works. And when it comes time to choose a structure for your idea, you'll be able to effectively do that. The sixth thing to think about is find a mentor to give you honest feedback and keep you accountable. It's just a crazy myth that writers work alone in the world. You know, that myth of the writer in the attic silently spinning a bestseller. It just doesn't work this way. And the proof of that is if you look at any acknowledgement page of any book, just pick up any book off your shelf. You know, you see hundreds or dozens of people that writer is thanking, and for different phases of help at different parts of the book. It is a team endeavor for sure. It is your voice, your story, your vision, your idea, but there are a lot of people that are going to help you along the way. And if you don't ask for help, odds are much higher that you're going to be frustrated and overwhelmed. There are rare few people who can sit down and spin a beautiful tale without any interaction or feedback or anything. But if you are that kind of person, you probably already know that you are, and you probably are not wondering how to get writing. You probably already have a career as a writer. It's a very rare skill. So it's interesting because back in the day of publishing, this nurturing, this accountability was baked into the process. Famous editors like Maxwell Perkins with their famous writers. He worked with Hemingway and Fitzgerald. This was the model. And Perkins, if you've read anything about him or watched any movies or anything, I mean, they helped their writers financially. They helped them emotionally. They helped them with their ideas. They helped them with their doubt. They helped them keep accountable, get pages in, find other writing gigs to help support them. They were really in there nurturing these writers and their careers. It was baked into the publishing process. And what happened was the internet. The internet flattened everything, and also in publishing. And now the means of production were available to any writer. So you didn't have to have a gatekeeper like a publisher or Maxwell Perkins choosing you. You could choose to do your own nurturing. You could find a team to nurture your own self and to give you what you needed to get your book into shape, to get it to the publishers. And that's really now more the model that we see. Publishers are expecting books to be fully cooked by the time they land on their desk. There is not a lot of time or room or money or energy to nurture writers anymore or to nurture their careers. It's a very rare editor at a publishing house who spends much time at all on their writer's work. I have a client who has a book coming out from Penguin in 2021, and she turned in her full manuscript a few months ago, and I had been working with her for about a year, and she was used to this every weekly feedback from me, and which is a very fast turnaround and very detailed field feedback. And she got the full manuscript edit back from her editor, and she was panicked because she said there's barely any comments. They barely are asking me to do anything. They're barely connected or even engaged with this book. Did they even read it? And that's the experience a lot of writers have when they get into the publishing house, is they're expecting it to be done by the time it gets there. So what that means is that you're kind of on your own to figure this out and to give yourself the nurturing that you need. So the action to take is to ask for what you want and pay for what you need. So what you want might be a writer's group to gather around you and support you and help you and keep you accountable. What you want might be beta readers to give you specific feedback along the way. And when I say pay for what you need, I mean invest in professionals who can help you at a point in that process. That might be an editor. It might be paying for time with an agent. It might be hiring a book coach. It might be, if you're going to self-publish, making your own cover, doing your own layout, all those elements. But you've got to know that you're going to need help. You've got to know what that help is and not be afraid to ask for it, and to get rid of this myth that writers do it on their own. They don't do it on their own. And any writer who is really doing the work will tell you that. So the seventh thing to do is to make a commitment to yourself to really do this thing. And that's really the heart of the work, is to allow yourself the time, the energy, the space, the headspace, maybe the actual space, which is a room of your own, quiet, noise canceling headphones, something, but making some sort of commitment to yourself to do this thing and to claim that for yourself, to say to yourself, I'm here, I'm doing it, I'm on this path, this is my road, nothing's gonna stop me. And the action to take toward that is just pick one small step towards that commitment. You know, that a book is a giant undertaking, and maybe that small step is I'm getting noise canceling headphones, or I'm getting a new notebook, or I'm going to sign up for a writer's conference, or I'm going to commit to writing a certain number of words every day, or I don't like to write every day, I'm going to commit to writing every Saturday, whatever it is. But one small, serious, intentional step toward your commitment is going to be what gets you where you go. You can learn more about how we help writers. These are 3 websites where you can find things on that. At my website, jennienash.com, I have a list of 10 tips to help you write a book, and those tips lead to a lot of other material. It's very robust. It's not just little tips. It leads to courses and worksheets and all kinds of things like that. So you can get some information there. At bookcoaches.com, you can get a lot of information about being a coach. Bookcoaches.com will lead you to, there's a series of videos about what book coaching is like. It's 6 videos, they're 30 minutes each. It's me talking about what coaching is, how it works, who it's good for, who might want to do it. You can get those videos at bookcoaches.com/ABC. And if you're interested in being coached, you can go to authoraccelerator.com. We match you with our certified coaches at no cost to the writer. The matching is free. And we find a coach, a certified coach we think would be right for you and your project. And the coaches give accountability and feedback while you write. We have an amazing community of coaches. We have about 60 certified coaches and quite a few students in our course. I've got 2 Wellesley alums that I know of who are, one is a certified coach, that's Suzette Mullen, maybe she's here listening today, she's class of 83, and Marnie Seneker, who's class of 94. And it's actually really sweet because when Marnie came into the program, and I don't know how she learned about Suzette or knew that she was a Wellesley alum, but she reached out to her, which is asking for what you want, and said, will you sort of be my unofficial mentor through this program? So they've connected with each other. It's really wonderful. So that is the end of the slides. I'm going to stop sharing and undo that and come back and answer the questions. I see no questions. Have you guys been so silent?
No, we'll take a minute while you put your questions in the chat. And I want to say, Jenny, we had a question the day we sent this out for registration about a month ago. Immediately, somebody had a question. I'm not even sure if she's with us today or not, but Ellen had asked, and so I will pass this question right now to you. Social media, and you sort of hit on it briefly with the internet changing things drastically, but she said, how important is social media for new authors today? And how do you create a social media profile that is distinct from your day job? That's what she had asked.
I mean, it's a really good question. And the answer is probably going to be one that you don't like. And the answer is, if you want to be a writer who's connecting with readers today, you kind of have to be on social media. And I recently watched the documentary, The Social Dilemma. For those of you who haven't seen that, it's Netflix, I think. It's
highly recommend it. Yeah.
Terrifying. And, you know, I watched that and I was like, okay, that's it. I'm pulling the plug on all social media. But I actually just wrote a blog post about this because I did a lot of thinking about it. And, it's the town square. It's where people are. It's how we connect. It's how we build our communities in a different way now. And if you're intentional about how you approach it and what you do, it doesn't have to be, I mean, yes, there are massive conglomerates on the other side of the screen, but you can control what you do on there and what you allow to come at you. But the point is, we live in a time when writers are in charge of connecting with readers. They just are. There's no way around it. And people have this myth that if you get a big publishing deal, that's going to take care of everything and you don't have to worry about it. It's this thing like, I just want to write and have somebody else take care of that. And it just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. And so, part of what you have to do is figure out, what do you like best about connecting with people if it's online? And, it doesn't have to just be this monolithic social media. It can be, what do you really enjoy? What do you like? What works for you? And you've got to figure that out. And the idea of what a writer is going to do, it might have to do with your topic. It might have to do with your genre. It might have to do with the point you're making. It might have to do with your ideal reader. There's so many ways to actually connect in a really powerful, beautiful, moving way. And the thing that I most suggest is to find a writer that's doing something that you admire and that you follow and that you like, and just study them. What are they doing? What do they send out? What do they talk about? How long are their interactions with people? What sort of spirit do they bring to the whole thing? And I think that's a really great way to get comfortable with what you want to do your own self. I mean, I get overwhelmed by it as well. I recently started on Instagram. I do not get it so completely. There's parts of it I do not get. And I do things wrong on there all the time. I'm just goofing all the time. I can't figure out why when I post one thing, it gets, however many likes. And when I post something else, it doesn't get any. It's just a total mystery to me. But I've heard people say the same thing about Twitter. And I love Twitter. So, who knows? So now we have tons of questions. I'm so happy. I thought you guys were all just silent. Like, that is not the Wellesley I know. I mean, I can start in maybe while Becky and Dana look through the questions. Oh, do you want to go? Okay.
Sure, I'll start. It looks like I'm trying to group them a little bit just for the sake of time. So
yeah,
you talked about doing this with a team, with a group, collaboratively, and a couple people have asked about finding beta readers or editors or literary agents. How do you go about finding people like that? And what are the fees and the cost, even including the cost of a book coach?
Yeah, so you want to be very intentional and careful about who you invite into your universe. A lot of people make a mistake where they reach out to, people make this mistake with friends and family, like they give their writing to friends and family and they have not sort of properly figured out how to establish that relationship, that feedback relationship, and they often get sort of burned. For beta readers for finished work, there's this fabulous company called Spun Yarn. And they are professional beta readers. They'll give you 4 beta readers over the course of a month for a really low fee. I feel like it's just a couple $100s. They even have middle grade and YA readers that will read your book. It's incredible. And they have this rubric that the readers follow at every quarter of the book. They stop and give you feedback. And I think it's a fabulous service and it's not very expensive at all. A lot of people don't pay for beta readers. They just ask their friends or people that they know who read in the specific genre to give them feedback. That's an effective way to reach out to beta readers. In terms of finding an editor or a book coach, you really want to find somebody who's working in the genre that you work in and whose philosophy you believe and understand. And again, it's just, if you know those things I talked about, why you're writing, what your goal is, what your point is, who your ideal reader is, if you know all those things, you'll be in a much better position to find somebody that works for you. So you can search for book coach. Certainly, you can go to Author Accelerator. We'll match you for free You can, in terms of editors, I mean, there's a freelance editors association. I think it's the opposite. I think it's called Editorial Freelance Association, I believe it's called, that vets individual editors. So that's a thing that you could do for sure. In terms of fees for what you would pay, the range of fees is all over the map. It's all over the map. I have been doing this for a long time and my fees are really high. Most people come to me when they're super serious about getting an agent and a publishing deal, and they're really ready and willing to invest. A lot of the coaches that I train when they first are certified offer what I think are ridiculously low fees for the service that you're getting. So I want to put some numbers to this so I'm not being vague. For somebody to work with me in a 6-month coaching program, it would be $4,000 a month, very high fee. Some of my coaches do various programs and things that they can start at $150 for a 1-chapter read or a 3-chapter read, or maybe a session where you're looking at an outline. And then it goes up from there, step by step, all the way up, depending on the service or the value that you're offering. Those really low fees are usually for like a teaser thing, so you can get to know that coach's style. I mean, one thing that I have to say about money, I try to talk a lot about money because of this myth that, writers don't make money. And, I talked about the fact that it's not, writers, you can't go into it thinking, I'm going to make enough money to, save my family for generations to come. But you can make money. And if you're intentional about what you're doing as a writer and you know what you're looking for and what's going to work, money is there to be made. And as a book coach, it's the same thing. And, this is like a big mission that I'm on, it because it's especially women who sort of just take whatever they can get, who, this thing like writing for exposure, that means like, we'll put your writing up on our website, but we're not going to pay you. That sort of thing there's a time and a place for that in a career, but I am really on a mission to get women to value this work that they do and the teaching work of coaching just as well. People spend a lot of money on their writing. We've done some studies, and an average writer spends some years $10,000 and more. They're going to conferences, they're buying workshops, they're taking classes, they're buying books, they're buying video courses, they're spending money. So if you as a coach can help those writers and add value to their process, and that does not mean guaranteeing that they're going to write a bestseller. Nobody can do that. You can just guarantee that you can help that writer, then you will be able to make money at this work. So that was a lot of topics tied up in one, but the question of where to find all those people, there's so many databases, there's so many, I would just start by Googling and start by knowing what you want, what you're asking for, what you're looking for. What's the next group of questions?
So we had there's a variety of how do you know when you're done? Variations on that, but there's a memoir, I'm writing a memoir, potential reactions from family, could be touchy. Also, how do you just know you're done? I'm on 3rd draft of memoir and it just feels like I can't quite wrap it up. And so a couple questions along those lines.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, memoir is just a massively big topic to dig into. Those questions that I posed about why you're writing for memoir are truly critical. Are you writing this for your own self to sort something out? Are you writing this for revenge? Are you writing this for legacy for your family? You really have to know why you're writing it. And if you're writing your memoir for the marketplace, a lot of people will say, I have a story I think will help a lot of people. I want to save them the pain that I went through, that type of thing. Great motivation, but you really got to know, who is that reader? What do they want? What else are they reading? What is my point? So important for memoir. You have to know the point of your story, because you've got a whole life to draw from. You're not telling your life story. You're making a point from elements of your life. So so many things we could talk about on that particular topic. And shape and structure for memoir, super important. That point, go find memoirs you love and see what they did. I mean, look at Cheryl Strayed's Structure in Wild. It's genius. Look at, I mean, a lot of people just read Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Really interesting, unusual structure that she chose. But really look at, what is she doing? How did she do it? Why did she do it that way? How did that serve her story? How was that experience as a reader? You know, structure in memoir is everything, because that's the container. It's where does it start? Where does it end? What is the path? How do you know when you're done? It was one of my favorite questions, because you can, a lot of people, this is a favorite procrastination tool. They sit on a finished manuscript for like 5 years, tweaking it and fixing it and polishing it and saying it's not right and it's not perfect, it's not this and that. And so if you're doing that, if you sense you're doing that, you got to just let go. And you have to think about what artists always say about like a painting. You know, they always say a painting is never done, it's just abandoned. Same thing. You've got to just pick a day and say, this is done. And the way that I do that, if I'm in that situation or I have a writer in that situation, is a book is kind of scary because it's going to live forever. It's like, here's what I thought at, you know, forever. Here's what I wrote forever. And it can be very embarrassing when I look back at the first book I published when I was 25 years old. It's cringeworthy. It's so cringy. But I am deeply grateful for that book, for the person who wrote that book. It started me on this path. It started me on this journey. It's a testament to where I was at that time of my life and in that moment. So that kind of thinking can help you, because some of the paralysis comes from, it's got to be perfect because it's going to live forever. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It is going to live forever, but it can be representative of where you are at that point in your life right now. And maybe you're not at that point next year. Maybe you'd write a totally different book in 5 years. That's okay. So it's kind of letting go of the fact that this one book has to be everything. That can really help. The other side of that coin, so there's the coin of like never finishing and that perfectionism thing. The other side of that coin is you whip out a rough draft, you're totally done, you get no feedback on it, you publish it your own self, you put it up there on Amazon to buy, nobody buys it, or those that do, you know, are disparaging about it, and that's the opposite, right? So what we're looking for is a sweet spot in the middle, what I call the good enough manuscript. So the good enough manuscript is somewhere in the middle of those extremes. Now, if you're going for an agent and a publishing deal, this is a very important notion, this notion of the good enough manuscript, because the agent is probably going to have things they want you to change. The editor at the publishing house is probably going to have things that they want you to change. There's going to be a proofreader. There's going to be maybe a legal team that goes over it. When a book is sold to a publisher, there's lots of things that still are going to happen. So good enough doesn't mean camera ready. It just means good enough to get the thing, if that's your goal, to get that goal. Now, if you're self-publishing, good enough is a different question, because now you don't have all those gatekeepers in a row unless you bring them in yourself. Like if you bring in, and I deeply recommend that you do, an editor and a proofreader, you're putting your own stop gaps in there basically. But good enough is, it's good enough for me to hire those people. It's good enough for them to do the job that they need to do. So, you know, you have to think about the process, that perfection, there's a moment for perfection, but it's not the moment most people think it is. It's later in the process. That, you know, there's a point when it's like hands off for any writer, because the cost of literally moving the type around on the page, I mean, not literal type, but you know what I mean, the layout is going to be too high. So it's like hands off, and that's it. So, you know, you're not at that day yet. The good enough place is what you're after. I hope that answered the question.
There's a lot of terrific questions, Jenny. One other one, a couple people referenced is, do you have a couple of tips of things that you think effective writers, there are like universal things that people who are writing do to be successful? Like, wake up at 5 a.m. every morning. That would never work for me, but anything like that that are just very common. And I'm sure it's very, it depends on the person, of course.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those kind of tips, and I'll
Okay.
tell you what works. So I'm not a fan of them because, well, I mentioned Cheryl Strayed earlier. She doesn't write every day. So like if I said, oh, all successful writers, write every day, or they write at the same time, or they do this or that, she doesn't write every day. She writes in fits and starts and bursts. If I told you, oh, you got to read Cal Newport's book, Deep Work. Deep work is all about having the space and the time to really go deep into something and not just skitter around on the surface of it. But I know a lot of mothers of young children who read Deep Work and they were furious because it's like, I'm not going to get deep work for 18 years. So what am I supposed to do? So, any sort of tip or trick or what have you is not helpful. What's helpful is, and that's why I have the steps that I have. If you know why you're doing this, if you know what you're trying to do, if you know who you're trying to reach, if you know all those questions, you can find the habits in your life that work. Speaking of young moms, I had a client who wrote a book that's done exceptionally well in the marketplace, and she literally wrote 10 minutes at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what she could do. When I had little kids and was writing one book, I finished the book. I remember very clearly. I had two little kids and they were in the bathtub. I was sitting in the hall outside the bathroom, finishing the notes, edits on this manuscript, just listening to make sure they weren't drowning. Like that's how I did it, like you do what you have to do. So I think it's more about tapping into why you want to do it and what your goal is, and then setting yourself a realistic project management system. So realistic would be, I am going to finish a draft in 6 months. I can write for X hours a week. And, this is a thing, especially for women, you got to think of what it's going to cost you. What are you going to give up? Are you going to, I mean, this is a perfect example. I didn't fold laundry for a really long time. My kids would just get their clean laundry in a laundry basket, dumped in there and put in their room. There was no folding happening because I was going to go right. So what it cost me, what I gave up is nicely folded laundry. And, people laugh about that, but I'm dead serious. I made that intentional choice because you've got to give up something. Our lives are full. So by knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it, then you pick, what am I going to give up? Right now, for example, I'm running this company. It's a really busy job. I'm also coaching privately my own self. So I just have a very busy life. We have an empty nest. My husband and I have been married for 32 years. And I said to him a couple years ago, I'm done making dinner. I'm not planning meals. I'm not shopping, and I'm not cooking. I'm just done. I'm running this company now. I did that for however many years in our family. I'm done. So we do something different now. We either take out, or he cooks, or we pick up food somewhere. But it's deciding what you're not going to do. Now maybe you don't have the option in your life to do that right now, but there's something you've got to give up. And sometimes it's and again, it goes back to knowing why you want to do it. You're not going to give something up if you don't know what this means to you or what you think you're going to get out of it.
I like that.
I'm also happy, Becky and Dana, to stay like 15 more minutes, because there's a lot of questions and I'm happy to keep answering them if people want. And one other thing I can say is go on to Twitter or Instagram or Facebook and follow me. It's pretty easy to find me. It's just Jennie Nash with an IE, and tag Wellesley so I know that you were on this, and I'll answer all the questions on there. But
Okay.
I'm happy to stay if you guys can.
Well, before Becky asks another question, I just want to emphasize too that I really love that you're really affirming to find what works for you in terms of, you know, how to be a writer, and also recognizing the element of sacrifice. So thank you
Yeah.
for staying some extra minutes. What's up next, Becky?
Well, we had several questions about how do you find an agent, and also about children's books.
Yeah, and I saw some people jumping in to offer some help on children's books through SCBWI, which is a fabulous organization. It's really true. In terms of finding an agent, there are amazing databases. So Manuscript Wishlist is a great one. That's a website where agents literally list what they're looking for. If you look at Publishers Weekly, they have a column on either new agents or agents that have newly opened their list to submissions. They often profile 4 or 5 agents in every column. If you just look up Publishers Weekly agent list, you'll probably find it. There are 2 databases that I use. One is called agentquery.com. The other is called Agent Tracker, I think. And you can put in keywords of what you're looking for. You can put a genre, you can put in all different things in it. It pulls up agents. The other thing is look at writing conferences. Even if you're not going to them, look at who is presenting at writing conferences, the big conferences all over. The Muse conference in Boston, or the San Francisco Writers Conference, or the Maui Writers Conference, or Sun Valley, whatever it is. Agents present at conferences when their lists are open, when they have room for people, so you can see what they're looking for. It's a really great practice to look at what agents are looking for, because there's trends, there's things that move, and I never suggest writing to the market in that way. It doesn't work, because by the time you've finished doing your thing, there's another trend. So that doesn't work. You have to write what's in your heart. But what you want to do is then find the agent who's writing that thing representing that thing that's in your heart, and they're going to be out there. And if you study them and what they're looking for and what they want and what they're interested in, you will start getting a really good sense of this. And it's a great thing to do. And this actually brings up a very interesting point. People think that writing is sitting at the keyboard. That's a very small part of writing. Writing is gathering your people, gathering your resources, doing your research, reading other people's books, studying their structure, looking at reader reviews, figuring out what's going on in the marketplace, thinking about your goals, defining them, seeking the help you need. That's all writing too. And people don't think about that part. So, that going back to that thing about how do you make the time to do all this, a huge part of it is make the time while you're driving in the car or in the shower in your head. Like, give yourself the headspace to think about your story or your idea or your structure or your goal or your thing. That too is writing, and that's work that has to be done as well. So those are some of the resources, and I can write those down so that Becky and Dana can send them out to you guys. I have a lot of resources that I can write down.
That would be lovely. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, and it was spun yarn. I see people asking about that. Yeah. Is there another part of that question?
Children's books.
Oh yeah. What about them?
If you had any tips, board books, children's books.
Yeah. Yes, I do have a tip. Go follow a woman named Emma Dryden, Dryden. She went to Smith, and she ran 2 mega publishing houses, including Kate McGeldery Books. She was a prominent children's book editor, and she's now a book coach. She's a board member at SCBWI. She's brilliant. She's generous. She has courses. She has coaching. Writing children's and board books is a very specific skill and talent with very specific requirements. There's things about illustration that you really have to know. Namely, if you're not a super talented illustrator, you should not be working on the illustrations for your book. That's what publishers do. They bring the writer and the illustrator together. But follow Emma Dryden. She's amazing. So that would be my recommendation. You can tell her I sent you.
What about people who are wondering?
Also, obviously, they want to seek you out, Jenny, but how else would you recommend that they can sift through for the quality, ethical sort of guidance in a coach or a helper? What are they, what should they really be verifying or looking for?
I mean, a huge part of it is just intuition, but the first thing I would say is be very wary of anybody that is promising anything. Anybody that's promising, I mean, by anything, I mean like a bestseller, or, even like there's a lot of people right now that are doing this thing that's really creepy, which is, we promise that you can write an Amazon bestseller. Your book will be an Amazon bestseller. Well, guess what? I self-published that book on book coaching, the little book on book coaching. And I literally did nothing except upload it to Amazon. And on the public pub day, it was an Amazon bestseller. And 3 people had bought it. Like it's just bogus, right? So anybody that's promising anything like that, don't believe it. Anybody that's promising it's going to be fast, don't believe it. It's not fast. Anybody that's promising that it's going to be cheap, it's not cheap. I mean, the prices that I cited, there are coaches certified by Author Accelerator that are charging $250 a month for 6 months to help you plan and write a book with accountability and feedback and stuff. That's probably the lowest that you're going to get. And that is, don't go much lower than that. Like if you think about it, you can't get good feedback or help for much lower than that. And those are going to be the coaches just newly launching their businesses. And if you want to be matched with one of those coaches, we have an intake form where we match you. Just say, I'm looking to work with a new coach at an affordable price, or our coaches have to work with writers in the program itself as a practicum, where you wouldn't pay. That's a thing you can offer yourself up for as well. Or you could let me know on social media and I can let the coaches in training know. That's a cheap way to do it. But I would have a mindset that you want to actually invest in this. It's education, it's training, it's an investment in your own self and your own idea and your own worth. And it's part of the reclamation of, that this is important to you. I know not everybody has money to spend, but if you can, another question I get is, where would I spend my money if I only have a small amount to spend? And I would say 100% spend it at the start of your project. In the first 6 weeks, get really solid help on laying the foundation for the story or the book idea. That's the best place to get help. The next best place would be when you finished a draft to get an evaluation of it, so that you can know what's working. If that's your situation, I think actually literally today, there's a course that I'm teaching on how to revise a novel at Mark Dawson's self-publishing formula website. It's selfpublishingformula.com. We've been working for a year on this course. It's ridiculously affordable. I think it's $200. I have examples, I have downloads, I have programming, I have a step-by-step process. There's a spreadsheet thing. There's like all this great stuff in there, and I teach how to revise a novel, so you could check that out. And also on Creative Live, I teach a 6-hour course that they often have on special for like $69. We filmed it about 4 years ago, but it's 6 hours on how to start a novel. You could look at that. I saw somebody mentioning Story Genius. So that person probably knows that I coached Lisa Cron on that book. So Story Genius, I'm totally biased, but I think is a fabulous book for writers. And Wired for Story, Lisa's first book, which I also coached. She has a new book coming out, which we just finished, called Story or Die. that's coming out next year. Those are good books. And we have some books that Becky and Dana will also send out with the recording that I recommend for different genres and things. So I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions, unless you guys want to cut me off.
I'm happy to. Well, somebody was asking about how do you start thinking about whether you're going to go the self-publishing route or a more traditional route?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be like pointing people to all the things I sell. That's not my intention. I'm trying to just quickly think of ways to help, but I do have a very inexpensive class. I think it's $49 called Navigating the Path to Publishing, that walks you through the choices. But there are pros and cons to each one, and I can really quickly whip through them. But traditional publishing, super slow. You don't have a lot of creative control because you have a team that is working on your behalf, and you make money up front, but you make a very small percentage on the back end. You know, it's 15% of the sale price of the book, and you have to pay your agent 15%. Those are quickly the pros of traditional publishing. The pros of self-publishing are super fast, totally in your control, and you get more money. You have to pay to produce the book, but you get more money for every book sold because you are the publisher, basically. And then there's a piece in the middle, hybrid publishers, really popular coming up. Some of them that you may have heard of are She Writes Press is a leader in this space. Page 2 books, Greenleaf books. Here's the best way to learn about this. There's a woman named Jane Friedman, Friedman, Jane Friedman. She's a publishing industry guru. She has an amazing newsletter, and she every year puts out this PDF on the different publishing paths. It's fabulous. If you just Google Jane Friedman publishing path PDF, odds are excellent it will come up. And she literally, it's one sheet, and she has these columns on. It's really about creative control, the degree of creative control that you have, and also the degree of money, how the money flows and who gets what money where. So knowing all those things we talked about, what your goals are, why you're doing this, who you're doing it for, if you know all that, you can look at those pros and cons and pretty quickly determine where you're going to fall in the process. That being said, there are some books that simply are not going to be commercially viable for a traditional publisher. So that, there's a way you can do an idea or look at an idea or shape an idea that has a better chance of success. And this sometimes goes back to what we talked about at the very first question, which was social media. I mean, if a publisher has a choice between publishing a book from somebody that has 1 million followers and somebody that has none, they're going to go with the 1 million followers. So that always goes to the question, well, how big a platform do I have to have? And there is no answer to that. But the bigger the platform, which is just simply who can you reach, who is following you, who will buy your books, the more likely a traditional publisher is going to want to work with you. That is not to say that if you don't have a following, they won't work with you. That's not true. They will, but it's a much more of a roll the dice on the writer's part to get a publishing deal if you haven't built up any sort of a following. That's way more true on the nonfiction side. On the fiction side, you write a great book, they're going to want to publish it. So I can't even remember what I was answering now. I'm sure
more than generous with your time.
Oh, thank you. I love it when people do my Googling for me. There's the Jane Friedman thing. Say yada. Thank you. That's exactly it. She does it every year. She's amazing. She's super smart. Totally trust what she says. That's a great place to start. Yeah. And I see Ashley mentioning The War of Art. I love that book. You guys are great. I wish I could be with you all day and answer all the questions. I know, but what a great engaged group. I mean, not a surprise, but I loved it. So thank you. And thanks for all the great questions. Trudy, you're welcome. And Stacy, also 86. Thank you. And yeah, if you guys have questions, find me. I'll answer them. I try. That's what I try to do on social media, which is another thing. People wonder, what do I do on there? And it's like, just be generous. You know things too. Whatever you're wanting to write about, you know, that's your expertise too. And it doesn't matter. It could be, I always default to dragons. I don't know why, but it could be dragons. It could be, you know, whatever, but, you know, just be generous. That I think is a great strategy for writers. And I love social media because I'm actually, maybe contrary to what you might see here, I'm an introvert. I like to present, I like to speak, but I largely am by myself in my own head. And I think so much social media is great because it's a fabulous way for introverts to connect. You don't have to talk to anybody. You just can write them little notes. So thank you for all your kind.
Oh my goodness, yes, thank you so much, Jenny. This was marvelous. And we are going to follow up with not only a link to the recording for those of you who missed parts of it, but we will also send, we've been collecting through the chat different links, and Jenny shared a lot of information in the Q&A.
Yeah, and I'm happy to come back if you guys will have me another time, if you want to do something specific on memoir or book coaching itself as a occupation or whatever.
Great, we'll do an encore.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful.
All right, well, everybody have a great day. Thank you guys. It's very,
wonderful.
Very kind. Bye.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who organized. Appreciate it so much. This was really helpful.
You are so welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
That's great. Jenny, I love your laugh. Wonderful. Well, can't ask for more than that. That was wonderful. I'm gonna ring off to Dana because I have an appointment at 1:30.
Later. Great.
So I'm gonna leave. All right. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.